How is EverQuest doing in 2025? I will go over EverQuest 2, EverQuest 1, and emulation servers. If you've ever wanted to try out EQ for the first time, or even relive the excitement you first had playing EQ years ago, there is a new server you really need to hear about. EverQuest 2 live servers. These servers are free to play on, except for the newest content that you will need to purchase the latest expansion for, $35 USD. EQ2 Live was hard to get a feel for. The Scars of Destruction expansion, the 21st expansion for the game, revisiting some old Velia zones from the first game. I don't know anyone who plays live EQ2, and I don't think a lot of people even do play live EQ2, so it was hard to get a good opinion on it. All I heard was the loot tables suck, but the solo content was solid, better than some of the most recent expansions. Beyond that, expect the 22nd expansion later this year. They are still making new content. But if you do know what's going on with live EQ2, could you please give your opinion in the comments below? EverQuest 2's progression server, Varsoon. This server requires an active subscription to play, $15 a month or cheaper if you pay for longer periods. I played on Varsoon from its launch to the Kunark expansion, which got me a few years in. I really enjoyed it. This is a server that progresses through all of EQ2's expansions one by one, but at this point, it's really far along now. After I left, some players complained that the tuning started to get worse and worse in each expansion, but if you still want to play there, there are guilds that are still raiding end content to this day, and they will take anyone who's willing to do the journey to get there, get to endgame. But a lot of people left Varsoon when the Origins server released. Varsoon was fun for what it was, but I think it's way too late to join for most people, and Origins cannibalized Varsoon's population. EverQuest 2's Origins server, aka the Anashti Sul server. This requires a subscription to play. This is EverQuest 2's closest thing to a classic server, like a Project 1999, if you know what I'm talking about. It's the only server we have that tries to recreate EverQuest 2 as close to the original release as possible. Not completely, but close. It got a lot of attention for doing that last year, and there's two other things the community really liked about the announcement of this Origin server. One, it's the first EverQuest server for either game on its own patch module. So what this means, the patches that fix problems with expansion 21 also affect servers only playing on expansion number 2. And that can really throw off balancing between the servers, but not on this Origin server because it's independently patched and balanced. So that's a big improvement in theory. And 2, this server features limited monetization. There is a cash shop, but no chrono, and chrono being a way to trade your dollars for in-game currency, RMT. This is also the only server for either EverQuest 1 and 2 that doesn't allow for chrono to be traded. Except kinda. People are savvy enough to get around it. What they're doing is they'll trade chrono on other servers where it's allowed, and then exchange the game money on this server. So you still have chrono trades on Origins, it's just extra steps. It's a good idea in theory what the devs were trying to do, but I don't know how they could enforce it. Gameplay, EQ2 Origins, this is a more hardcore version of the game. You might remember if you played back in 2004. Leveling is slower, the mobs hit harder, there's downtime, and the pace isn't as frantic. The overland zones and the scrawny mobs that you normally blow off in current EQ2, you can't do that here. This server is fairly young, decent population for EverQuest 2. I think EQ2 has always been about half the population of the first game. But now for real criticisms. I need to temper everything that's said here because it's just one person who's doing it all. One dev has to run this server and also work on other servers all at the same time. That dev is spread way too thin, so I can't fault them entirely for these problems. Critiques were that the Origin server got stale because it stayed in the vanilla base game for too long. We're now just getting the first expansion months later. Some bugs have never gotten addressed. Itemization was rough. Raids weren't dropping anything worth equipping. But that is classic EQ2 though. Raid loot did suck historically. The recommendation for this server, if you want to play EQ2 at all, Origins is the best server to do it on. But just enjoy the ride. Get max level, log off, and wait for the next expansion. Don't bother raiding. Give that dev some help, Daybreak. Now for the game you guys want to know about. Let's talk about Live EverQuest 1. So no subscription is required to play here, but you do need to purchase the latest expansion if you want to see the newest stuff. Again, $35 USD. So EverQuest, as it is, playing the 31st expansion, The Outer Brood. Again, I don't play it, so take what I say here with a grain of salt. I asked a guy I trust who does play it. This is what he said. Zone design, very good. The NPC models are also very good, but the hitboxes need work. I think it's because there's a lot of these giant NPC models, and they have very small hitboxes. That's what I assume is happening. Group missions are well-tuned and fun. Raids have some chunky bosses that can be challenging to more casual guilds, but overall they're enjoyable. Now personally, I was a bit disappointed because there was no good reason to buy this expansion for people like me who only play progression servers. Daybreak only offered the features of Dark Elf Ranger combo and a storage for clickies. Nothing I regret passing on. What I find disappointing is what Daybreak did with the prior expansion, Lorien's Song, the 30th, was brilliant. It's the only expansion I and many other players have bought in the past 10 years because it added the persona feature. The persona feature, it's like Final Fantasy XIV, where you can swap to another class on the same character. I saw so many people buy this expansion, not to play the newest content, but just for the persona feature, so they could use it on other servers, because it was a quick way to circumvent the terrible travel times in vanilla EQ, so you could play with your friends immediately. Imagine vanilla EQ, it takes like 30 minutes to get from Kanos to Freeport. With the persona feature, you could do it in a minute. It lets you also roll a new class if you are maxed out on your main and you're bored, you wanted something to do. Devs still need to add a function, a service to the game to handle the inventory clutter. Because you have all these piles of gear if you play 3, 4, 5, 6 plus classes on one character. It's just so much stuff you got to carry and there's not enough room for it. No fix for that yet. Anyways, because a lot of us bought the latest expansion, Lorien's Song, we had the option to check out modern EverQuest if we wanted to. First, for a lot of us. Now, I don't know how many people tried current EQ, but I did. So shout out to Variety Void, one of the biggest EverQuest streamers on Twitch. One of his community was this guy called Ominous, who 6-boxed on the Furiona Vi server. Played 6 characters himself, so he could do whatever he wanted. He could log on whenever and do stuff. Anyways, anytime we wanted to join him, he would drop one of his characters so we could get in, get some EXP, get a little taste of current EQ in the newest zones like Lorien's Inn. I really like that zone. I think this is the first time I've ever played current expansion EverQuest in 25 years. I was always a little behind. And it was so much fun until weeks later, Ominous got hit in a ban wave. MacroQuest. MacroQuest MQ, it's cheat software that turns your characters into self-playing bots. What many people feel is a necessary evil for playing the game as it is now. Finding others to play with in late expansion EverQuest is rare. It almost never happens except for preset guild groups. And the problem is you need other players to do anything in this game. And what if there's nobody? So the solution, a lot of people choose to play those multiple characters themselves. But even this presents a problem. It's really hard to control more than one character in late stage EQ. There's so many buttons and it requires such a fast reaction time that you need a little help. So a lot of people turn to third-party software for that assistance. Bannable third-party software. And even if you're using the software innocently, you're not using it to warp around zones or grief other players, you'll still get in trouble. Now, I understand banning people who use EverQuest on early expansion servers where there's so many people to play with. Finding a group is ridiculously easy. You shouldn't need to cheat there. Definitely ban people using it there. But late EverQuest, hell no. Playing multiple characters yourself is mandatory, not an option. So anyways, Ominous, that guy, that six boxer, he got so mad about getting banned that he said, I'm done. He could have been paying like $100 a month in subscriptions on top of buying 6 $35 expansion packs every single year for his playstyle. And unless the company, Daybreak, changes management or their stupid cheating policy, Ominous said he would never spend another dime to support this game. And that was the one time I got to try out live EQ and the only time I got to try out live EQ. It was a bummer. Some people were suggesting to the dev crew, people use this cheat software because there's an obvious need. Why don't you guys make an in-house version of it yourselves that you can approve of? Sell it as a feature of the upcoming expansion, something that would get everyone to buy it. Or sell a feature allowing you to have an extra mercenary as opposed to the one you get right now, because one is not cutting it. But the dev response is basically this. Why don't you just go group with somebody? There's no problem at all. Daybreak is so out of touch with how the game is actually played. But anyways, there will be another expansion, the 32nd, coming out winter this year. The game is still alive and kicking from 1999 to today. Now let's talk about EverQuest 1's progression servers that go from the first expansion all the way to the end, one at a time. These servers are subscription only. The 2025 roadmap that Daybreak put out suggests that one new progression server will be launching this year. I'm concerned about 2025. So last year, 2024's Teak was the most populated progression server ever. I had a blast playing there. It was something like 5,000 to 6,000 players all online. It was a repeat of the popular Mischief rule set from 2021. Random loot, bonus loot, and free trade is a fun twist on the traditional EQ formula. A lot of people either missed out on the original Mischief server in 21 or didn't appreciate it at the time. That was me. So we had to wait 3 long years for another chance, and what do you know? That server blew up. Amazingly popular. But Teak, as it is now, has passed the golden era of EQ expansions. Attrition is on the way. As for Teak's sister server, Tormax, this server co-released the same day as Teak, and it was DOA, dead on arrival. It was a plain Jane vanilla server that's traditionally starved of loot, and it just couldn't compete with an experimental server that's a loot pinata. The devs thought, hey, this is our 25th anniversary of the game. Let's throw out our 2 most popular rule sets ever. Good idea in theory. Problem is the server Tormax was based on, it was only popular because it was the 2020 pandemic. People didn't play that server because it was great. People played that server because they had nothing better to do. And also players didn't even know better. The Mischief rule set wasn't even tried until next year. So rip the Tormax server that came out in 2024. My concern with 2025 this year is what server can the devs release? They can't release another loot pinata server back to back and kill Teak prematurely. They can't release another vanilla server because of how bad Tormax bombed. If the company is going to get people to play on this year's server, it definitely needs to be experimental, but something that hasn't been done last year. Some speculations are a repeat of Oakland, a server with encounter locking so people can't kill steal your mobs, and Oakland, even better, has these unlocking bonuses that become amazing as time goes on. Other speculation is a PvP server, but that bombed in EverQuest 2 when it was tried a few years ago, Zeracon. PvP players are very vocal, but it's not that popular in reality. So I don't know what the devs are going to release in May 2025. It has to be experimental though. If I were them, I'd take inspiration from the last server I'm about to bring up. The server everyone needs to know about, new or old EQ players. The biggest surprise of late 2024 and moving into 2025 are the emulator servers. These are unofficial servers, not run by Daybreak Games. Now, these servers are all free to play on, but do give you the option to donate for the operation costs of running these servers. Project 1999 was one of the first major emulator servers of EverQuest. Project 1999 P99 was intended to be the most accurate representation of what 1999-2000 era EverQuest was. The crazy difficulty, the lack of conveniences, the fear. Official servers have long since watered down the difficulty with decades of patches, and it mutes the magic that original game had going for it. That's how some people feel. So P99, it ends with the final patch of the second expansion, Scars of Elias. You have P99 blue and green. The green server is the more populated one because it was newer, but as of late, P99 has taken a hit in population, and I think it's because of fatigue. A server that's been permanently locked in the same expansion for years, it gets stale. Meanwhile, you get newer, shinier servers that just released recently. People leave. Project Quarm. Project Quarm is basically if P99 had accessible rating and it ended 2 expansions later. The same high difficulty of classic EQ, the same general gameplay except for a few tweaks. This server will end in Plains of Power instead of Elias, still a favorite expansion for many an EQ player. Devs put on custom content for holidays and the like. Quarm also has the instance rating feature you see on official servers. This makes raiding accessible to a casual audience that needs scheduled raid times. P99, how it works, you only get one raid mob for the entire server and it will only spawn, say, once every 7 days. So if you can't wake up at 3 a.m. on a Tuesday morning, you're just not going to raid there. In contrast, Project Quarm is much more convenient for the dads, the employed dads. You just pick a guild that raids at the times that work for you. That's it. And lastly, the Hero's Journey server. This server came out of nowhere, and I kept hearing about it over and over and over. What the hell is the Hero's Journey server? I first heard the devs do some interviews with big EQ YouTubers, Catapultum and Aporia, the devs. And when they talked about their server, they just seemed so enthusiastic. Enthusiasm I've rarely heard in years. Then I saw some stat where the population of their server, the Hero's Journey, is higher than the population numbers on Teak, the most popular official server ever. 5,000 to 6,000 players at one point, is being beat by a server that came out of nowhere. 2 random guys made a server that's even more popular than what the company officially did. So what the hell did the Hero's Journey server do? I tried it out, but wasn't immediately hooked. It took a few hours and it clicked. I realized the secret sauce. What if EverQuest was a single player game? A game where you could solo everything. 1 to 60, grouping and rating. If there was anything you wanted to see or do in EverQuest but couldn't, you can do it here. Now, if you want to group with others, you can. If you don't want to, you absolutely don't have to. The other bonus is you do everything playing just one character. You don't need to box here, and you're not even allowed to box here. That headache. One character is all you need. Hero's Journey is a successful server because it did one thing really, really well. It proved that EverQuest needs a single-player version of the game. And as long as those devs, Catapultum and Aporia, they stick to that guiding principle, I believe the server will remain successful. No one's ever done a server like this to my knowledge. It's groundbreaking for EQ. The only version of EQ where you can just log on anytime and immediately start playing at any level. You don't need to sit LFG for hours in hopes to get a group invite. You don't need to beg your friends for help on the Epic. You don't need to pay $90 a month to boot up a 6-box. You just log on your one character and start playing. That simple. It's unbelievably accessible, unlike every other EverQuest server available to play. I found a lot of enjoyment checking out dungeons I never had a group to do. Howling Stones, Black Burrow, Najina, Gorge of King's Orb, High Keep, Crystal Caverns, Tower of Frozen Shadow, blah, 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 on and on. So much content I never had the opportunity to see. I can do it here. You can go to any one of these zones and clear everything in it solo whenever you want. This server has a feature players have been begging for forever. There's private instancing of all the popular zones, so you can grind there without butting heads with anybody. And if you want, you can invite friends too into those zones. The zoning is lightning quick on Hero's Journey. Unlike official servers, you have fast travel once you earn it. They use a lot of the pre-revamped zones like old school Freeport and such. They have love for people using the original character models, the legacy character models. They added robe graphics to races that never had support for it. They allow you to create an appearance item out of any weapon or gear you see, 5,000 plat, and the item turned into an NPC, and you can now use it for fashion. Almost brought me to tears. I begged Daybreak for this feature, and they said they couldn't do it. And somehow, Hero's Journey devs did it here, no problem. You can finally look cool with a matching set of armor while still wearing the best stuff underneath that's mismatching. Especially, I love these textures, these Velius textures that are abandoned after Planes of Power. But I do wish THJ had the original skeleton and werewolf illusions, though. I don't like the newer ones. THJ is the ultimate power fantasy server. So you play as 3 classes all at once, and the classes have been completely retooled. So if you think you know what a paladin or a rogue is on official servers, get ready to be surprised. It plays different here. So take 16 classes, and then you pick 3 of them to play all at once. I haven't done this kind of math since I took the last algebra test in high school, 13, 15 years ago. Here's the math on the screen, the formula, all that. I got the number 560. Took my math, if you will, but there are 560 class combinations you can play. Nobody knows what the best is. Nobody knows what the worst is. It's like EverQuest is a brand new game, completely unexplored. Nobody knows the meta. There's no 20-year-old wiki to look up. If you are a new player looking to get into EverQuest, this is the server to check out first. It is the most friendly start and play. And a lot of people on Twitch representing it too. If you have questions, you can ask them there. Variety Void and Broken Stoic are great streamers if you want to see what the server's like or ask them about it. For getting started with the emulator servers, I'll leave a link in the comments and description to their websites. It'll give you the instructions to download. They also all have Discord channels. The Hero's Journey Discord is the better place to find out how to download the game. So I'm talking about this server so much because I was so impressed. The Hero's Journey server should be a wake-up call to Daybreak Games. You need to make an accessible single-player version of the game. Whether that's through boxing support, like I was talking about MacroQuest earlier, or adding extra mercs, or one character, just playing one character like what the Hero's Journey did. I think the Hero's Journey server proved it's the best way to solve EverQuest's accessibility issue, because the population will continue to fall as years go on. And you can't play this game without people. This game is slowly becoming more and more unplayable over time. So how do we keep it playable in 2030, 2040, 2050? How do we keep it playable? So you have the solution, boxing, but it sucks. It's expensive. Mercenaries suck. So Hero's Journey is a permanent solution to that problem. The convenience of just rolling one character and being able to do everything. It's the most friendly way for someone to try out the game who's never played it before. And it also feels like the magic of playing EQ for the first time if you have played it before. I would love to play Expansion 31 Outer Brood with my character here. It'd be fun. Thank you all for watching. See you in the next one.